AME Australia.
Good morning everyone and welcome to our first programmatic event in partnership with Ashton Media. I think everyone in this room would really agree that programmatic has changed the landscape for online advertising, but there's still a hell of a lot that's confusing. So I hope that all of us today will walk away with a clear understanding of what we need to do for our brand when it comes to programmatic. Now, I'm not going to steal away from our speakers in terms of what we're going to hear today, but there's a few things that I do want to highlight. I mean, it's from that simple element of automation, and we needed it in this industry. When I started a long time ago to run a digital campaign, it took 8 to 10 times more time than a TV campaign. It needed to change. So from a simple element of automation, it's there. But then also you need to look at it in terms of what it can do for the promise of digital marketing. And it's around smarts, it's around data, and it's really around integration. And all of those elements are going to be covered today by our speakers. So, what are we going to hear today? I think there are going to be a few things that our speakers will agree on. Programmatic in terms of ad spend is definitely increasing. If you look at our PwC online ad revenue expenditure report, we don't break out programmatic yet. We will in time, but we estimate that around 20 to 25% of display ad dollars are going into programmatic. That's there. In terms of what we need to do, you know, initially there was such a fear around programmatic and it would take away everyone's job in the room. It's not going to happen. We know that when it comes to technology, it's about what you put in. But there is a need now for a certain different type of talent. And we're going to hear today about what that is. It's going to be around data. It's going to be around smarts. Is it a different type of person? Do we have enough of that talent in Australia? And we know digital has always been an area where there is a need for that constant growth in what talent does. Integration, something we've talked about from the beginning. We just can't keep making noises. And tech integration is a critical piece. I'm confident that we have the right tech partners and players in the room here today that are going to help us on that, because it is bloody complex. New ways of measuring success, critically important. So we'll see, you know, programmatic's evolved now into the branding space. You think of what people thought of it initially. It has evolved, and we'll see all of those elements are required in it moving forward. And it's going to stretch beyond desktop. You know, we're hearing about programmatic TV, we're hearing about programmatic evolve into other mediums. What does that mean? We've got a lot still to do in this space, but there's that opportunity moving forward. So in such a fragmented, and you know, at times it is a fickle world of consumer consumption, we need that automation. It is essential, and it's great to have so many of you marketers here today. So thank you for joining us, because marketers are getting more involved, and that piece comes down to the data. And it is about understanding that consumer journey from end to end. And sometimes when I hear myself talk about these things, it's like, oh, we've heard these phrases so much before, but they're really relevant now. And it is about understanding those pieces. I appreciate, from my perspective, it is a daunting world for you as a marketer. And so hopefully what we can do today is break that down for you. And that comes down to then the quality and the monitoring of the inventory. You know, programmatic isn't just about remnant inventory. It's not real-time bidding. You will understand by the end of today about all of the opportunities of what it provides to you. So it's a powerful tool. It's not yet fully formed. It's not plug and play perfect, but it's absolutely an upgrade. So I'm confident that we will all walk away today with an understanding of what we need to do for our brands. With that, I'd like to thank our sponsors and the delegates that are here today. Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank Ashton Media for partnering with us on this. Again, thank you. And I'm going to stop there, but I will go through a few housekeeping points for everyone. So, track 1 is in the keynote room. We have 2 tracks today. Track 2 is in the doors room. The agenda, we're trying to be paperless, so go to the website for the Programmatic Summit.com.au and it's also on the signage around you. If you want to tweet, please do. It's #Programmatic15. And there is free Wi-Fi available in the room. No password is required. It is a busy day, and this is something I need to remind myself of as well. When you enter a room, come up to the front, engage. This day is for you. Also, you'll see on your seat a little bookmark. Take it with you, because what the IAB have done, what we've done is we've developed a playbook for you with really all of the key pieces from today's speakers so that you can use that in your working day. That'll be available online tomorrow. So if there's one piece that you need to keep, take that with you. And I will stop there. I'm here obviously throughout the day across the 2 rooms. I'll also be moderating a couple of the panels. But what I'd like to do now is pass over to my friend Sam Smith, who will be introducing one of our keynote speakers. So thank you very much for being here. Welcome. Please enjoy. Please get involved and ask questions. Sam.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We've got 2 very impressive speakers for you today. Really exciting to have some people from overseas to share some knowledge. My job is just really to introduce them and read through their bios, which are pretty impressive, and I think it's worthy of whether you're hearing it. So the first speaker we have up this morning, Maya Gupta, is the Global Head of Marketing, Technology and Innovation for Kimberly-Clark. Maya joined the company in 2012 as the Chief Marketing Technologist. In the history of the organisation, he was the first technologist to join the organisation, reporting into the CMO. He created and now manages the Global Marketing Technology Group from the Chicago office, responsible for building global digital capabilities and the marketing technology vision, strategy and roadmap. Last year, Maya was recognised as one of the 40 under 40 leading marketers in the industry by Brand Innovators, and also received the CMO Programmatic Award by the CMO Club. Maya has successfully led a number of breakthrough initiatives at Kimberly-Clark, fundamentally transforming the culture and mindset towards the role that data and technology plays in driving consumer engagement and experiences. Please welcome to the stage, Maya Gupta.
Thanks, Sam. After that intro, I wish my wife was here. I don't think she thinks I do much. Very glad to be here. Mayur Gupta, as Sam said, Global Head of Marketing, Technology and Innovation. Whatever that means, I won't be offended if some of you are wondering what the hell is a technologist doing here in a programmatic summit, right, trying to figure out. But I try to answer that question almost every day at work, but that's also a reflection of how technology's evolved and how it's become pretty much the interface of marketing today. But before I get started, I want to set an expectation that I'm not here to talk about programmatic, how it works, what the great things about programmatic. I'm sure there are going to be some tremendous speakers during the day, and many of you, I'm sure, are pioneers who've actually built solutions and systems that brands like ours are actually using today. And secondly, I don't want to embarrass myself by talking about that area with you guys. But before we get started, there's something more fun that I want to talk about. As you can imagine, you have an Indian who's coming here from the US to Sydney, Australia during a Cricket World Cup. So any guesses on what this is, and any guesses on who's going to take the trophy this year? Sri Lanka, Australia. All right, well, I predict an India-Australia final, and this time India will probably just end up winning, unlike 2003. But there'll be a few Australians who will score centuries, so we'll all be friends by the end of it. So I usually I like to start sometimes with this story, which is actually a true story. It's not made up, but something that happened with me when I joined Kimberly-Clark 3 years back. So during my interview process, when I was, sitting in front of Clive Sirkin, who's a CMO and my boss, the first thing he said was, at Kimberly-Clark, we don't do digital marketing. We do marketing in a digital world. And he also said, we don't use the phrase digital marketing. And I was new, and I said, yes, sure, I get it. And I promised to him that I will not use that phrase digital marketing. I wanted the job. It was pretty interesting, a great opportunity. And he did give me the job. And for the first few months, I never used that phrase, even though I never got what he said and what he really meant. Up until this happened. And this is my elder daughter. She's 5, a little over 5 now, but back then she was 3. During this time, the first year or so, I was actually working out of Miami, so I was doing a lot of travel from Miami to Chicago and some of the other offices because I had a global role. So I would go back and forth all the time. And my wife, like many of you, had the Guilt app on her cell phone, on her smartphone. I don't know if you guys ever use a Guilt app, if that's common here. If not, I'm sure there's something else. And she uses it very often without any guilt, spends a lot of money. So we always get these packages at home. Every time I would come back, I would see all these packages. One day when I come back, I saw that beautiful, rather horrendous looking red polka dot socks. And my question to her was, hey, what is this? And did you order that? And she said, wait, what do you mean? I thought you ordered it. Anyway, so we were also getting quite a few wrong deliveries. So we thought maybe it's one of the neighbors, and we ignored it, just shoved it aside. I go back to work, the following week, and I come back, and she said, you know what happened? I said, what? Said the pair of socks actually were ordered by Samaya when she was playing on the phone. And I immediately had 3 reactions. My first reaction was, I thank God that Guilt was only selling clothes and shoes and not cars and houses, or I won't be here. My second reaction was, damn, 3-year-old already, going down this path, God bless me. And the third reaction was, I think that I finally got what Clive Sirkin really meant when he said, we don't do digital marketing, we do marketing in a digital world. Because that's the world we live in, where the consumer that we engage with is a digital consumer. The world we live in is a digital world. And she's not making choices that I'm going from analog to digital because I have the phone in my hand, so treat me differently. And that's the challenge, and that's the bar that the consumer has set for us as marketers and brands, and that's the benchmark that we all have to meet. So it was pretty foundational, fundamental for me. I've never forgotten that lesson, which means that, in our world today, the change has already happened. It's no longer happening, right? And it's only going to go up from here. But as brands, we're almost running behind. And coming from India, I don't know how many of you have ever been there, but every time you go to a railway station, you will always see that the guys, we always have this tendency of catching a train when the train has already left the station, right? And I always use this analogy in my mind that the train's like the consumer, and we are that brand. We're always following. And for us to win that race, we at least have to run as fast, if not faster, than the consumer. And, it's a big ask. And also massively believe in the fact that everything is digital today. You could argue and say everything is analog. Doesn't matter what chronology you use. Bottom line, there is no separation anymore, whether it's digital or analog. Like I said before, she doesn't say, hey, I'm on my smartphone, treat me differently. So use your analog marketing strategies. Now I'm on my phone, use your digital marketing strategies, right? That's the barrier that we've created, but the consumer doesn't see that. And needless to say, she's in full control. She's right at the center of the ecosystem. She's driving at 200 miles an hour, and she has all the power. So we no longer are in an era that was led by brands, no longer in an era that was led by e-tailers and pure plays. This is literally an era which is led, defined, and controlled by the consumer. She's got the reins in her hands. And not just that, right? Because of what technology has done, her expectations have gone soaring high, where she no longer thinks that technology will work. She assumes that it's going to work, and she's carefree, right? she doesn't expect that things are not going to work or fail. And you could argue that what's behind that change, what's behind that shift, is the massive proliferation of data and technology, especially in just the last 6 or 7 years. This is pretty much obsolete now. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. This is one of the infographics that pretty much encapsulates the entire MarTech and the AdTech landscape. There's a new one that came out earlier this year that was 2x, that probably had 4,000 different technology capabilities. All those are relevant, and I'm sure that one's obsolete as well. But it shows two things. One, the pace at which data and technology is evolving, which shows the pace at which organizations have to evolve. And two, the new role and the distinct role that technology is playing today, which is no longer just an enabler. So if you think about, I'm sure everybody here has probably seen the movie Avatar, and I don't know how many of you actually read some of the interviews and quotes from James Cameron, where he very clearly admitted the fact that the innovation in technology actually gave him a lot of ideas when he started working on Avatar. There were many years that he could not work on it, and because of technology innovation, he said yes, now he could go around and make it happen. And with that lens, you could argue, yes, technology has been an enabler, but at the same time, when he started that journey, all the innovation that was happening in the world of graphics and creative, he realized there's a lot more that he could do, and that inspired what we actually saw, which was a masterpiece. And of course, technology is creating new business models. Uber is fascinating, right? And it's not invention, very simply just connecting the dots, right? But you could argue whether that was a technology idea or a great strategy that the guy came up with. But at the end of the day, technology in many ways is creating new business models for brands and organizations, as well as creating new channels, right? It's new way of driving purchase, new way of driving consumer engagement, new ways of changing consumer behavior, that prevents a lot of brands from making money. Which means that as brands and organizations, we have no choice. We have to embrace data and technology. We have to embrace and catch up with the pace at which the world around us is changing if we have to win the race and align with the consumer. And this hasn't been easy, right? Because it's a new world, and technology has been isolated, and we've struggled as an industry with massive levels of isolation and silos. I think Alice pointed out earlier about fragmentation. I'll talk about that as well later in the presentation. But it's a huge challenge. But ultimately, for me, data and technology is that linchpin that's connecting her world, that's connecting all those different channels and the different silos. The ground reality, though, is while all that is happening and we're seeing all these great stuff, most of the brands and agencies are still struggling, right? All of us are still our heads under the sand, and that's probably because on one hand you can imagine data and technology is growing exponentially, but organizations and brands can only grow algorithmically. Change isn't easy, and while data and technology can be absorbed, you can adopt it. It's a cultural change, it's a mindset shift. That's a big barrier and a huge challenge, even in the sense of programmatic as well. So, and a big reason for that, I'm sure a lot of you who are in the world of media and programmatic are possibly seeing as well, is not so much about whether the technology works or not, right? It's about the mindset of taking risks. It's a mindset that believes that a change equates to taking risk, right? That it's the notion of moving forward is more risky than staying where you are, which we all know is probably the biggest and the most flawed assumption that we could ever make. And when you do that, this is what happens. This is what happens to brands from being a category leader to going out of business and bankrupt in less than a decade, right? Because you shut your eyes in front of change. You decide not to respond, and you let others take over your spot. And there's nothing better to illustrate that than this video that I love, and I stand by it. So I would request him to play the video. It's a very quick, short video.
And welcome to our focus group. Today we're going to show you an idea and ask for your opinion. This is called fire. Now, according to its developers, fire can be used for cooking, as a heat source, and to scare away those unwanted wild animals. Your thoughts?
My first impression is
It looks dangerous.
and if it gets hot, then it could burn me. It's so unsymmetrical. How do you turn it off?
Well, you'll pour cold water on it.
I don't like the red colour. When I think of red, I think of blood. And when I think of blood, it reminds me of death. And when I think of death, it reminds me of the eternal underworld. Does it come in green?
No green.
If there was a cold fire that didn't burn, maybe I would buy me one of those. Wait, it's amazing that they pay people to come up with such a fire.
So I don't know about you guys, but I've been on both sides of the fence. The guy whose idea has been killed and the guy who's killed many ideas as well. But I think, especially for something like programmatic, which is to me, it's not just a tool, it's not just a technology. I think it's a mindset. It's a cultural shift. Don't be surprised if you hear reactions like that, but the key is to continuously piercing through. But besides that challenge, like I was saying earlier, I feel there's a much broader and more fundamental issue that's sitting in front of us, in the world of marketing today that I call fragmentation. And it's fragmentation at the most foundational level. To begin with, the notion of digital marketing itself, right? So if you take a step back and look at what we're doing with the notion of marketing, there's digital marketing, there's search marketing, there's mobile, there's email, there's agile, there's content. It's massive, right? All of those are different elements of marketing. And what we're really doing is we've broken down a very simple concept of marketing, which should really be just good marketing or bad marketing. But we've really broken it down into so many different silos that ultimately ends up creating a broken experience for the consumer. But because we get excited about these silos, we've always been churned and nurtured in these isolated domains. We continue to do that, and what's ironic is we are celebrating that level of fragmentation. Second is even our organizational and operating models are massively siloed and fragmented, right? Whether you look at an agency or a brand, or a consulting firm, across the ecos, right? You have organization that is structured across search, mobile, data, analytics, CRM, media. Just within the world of marketing, then you have a marketing organization working in a silo from a finance and a sales organization that is responsible for driving sales and transaction, while marketing could be argued as an organization responsible for brand building. And then you have marketing isolated from IT. It's massive, it's broken. And in one of the books called Converge, the author had said, the challenge that we have as an industry is that consumer experiences are a reflection of how you're organized. And because we're organized in these silos, through these broken buckets, we continuously end up delivering these broken and isolated experiences. And then lastly, which I call, and as a result of those silos, is a syndrome that I call channel obsession. And I suffer from that myself, a massive channel obsessed syndrome, which really means that even though in decks and in theory we all want to say we are consumer obsessed, we all want to put the consumer at the center, in reality and in execution we put the channel at the center, right? So how many times have we used the word mobile first? How many times have we picked up the pen and started to plan and strategize by saying, oh, let's do something on mobile. We got to do something on social, right? We got to have, a connected, .com experience. We got to do something on OLA, OLV, media, and programmatic, whichever way. The bottom line is we think channels because that's easier, right? That's how we've grown up. That's how we've been nurtured. And that is a huge fundamental gap, because when she's going through a journey, she only cares about buying the best product at the best price at a channel, location, and time of her choice. She could care less whether she's getting the best product on a mobile device or, when she's actually sitting in front of her desktop or when she's walking inside a retail store. She just wants the best deal and the best product. So if you take a step back and think about what we've done, at the pace at which we're going, we've actually lost the concept of human. We've lost the human, right? We're so massively channel driven. Our plans, our budgets are all channel focused. And that's where I feel programmatic. I promised to Mark I was going to talk about programmatic, by the way. So programmatic is bringing a shift. For the first time, there is one capability that is bringing the focus back to the human. And that's where I feel it's not just a tool, it's not just a technology, it's a mindset shift with what programmatic is trying to do, right? And very briefly, if you look at what programmatic is, it's a beautiful illustration actually from IAB Spain that I picked up a few days back from the internet. And it clearly shows how beautifully connected machinery it is that's working very well, at least in the world of paid media, right? It's clearly showing how to leverage data. For the first time, it's showing how to use data not in the rear view mirror, but actually look ahead. It's showing how data can be used to fuel better consumer experiences and engagement. Needless to say, impacting the bottom line, optimizing how you buy media, very different from how you've traditionally looked at media buys, looking at publishers versus now looking at consumers, looking at personas, looking at what is it that you're really trying to solve. It's a massive shift. It's huge, right? And you could argue, that yes, data is a new planning tool. Data is the fuel. Data is the oil. Yes, we all get that, right? Some of us are using it in some bits and pieces. Some of are just using it in the storage, haven't really figured out how to apply it. And some of us are probably using it better than the others. And obviously, you don't need Albert Einstein to figure out, this is massively growing. It's a huge amount of adoption, huge amount of acceptance across the world. I know these stats are just for the US in terms of how quickly programmatic is growing. There are some of the leading brands that came out and said 3 months back, they want to shift 75% of their media buy to programmatic. Some of the brands are actually declared 100% of media buys through programmatic. Some of them are starting the journey because they believe this is the way to go. This is the way to actually drive higher return, higher conversion rates, higher click-through, right? Remove the waste, impact the bottom line. So it's a no-brainer, right? And it's very, very obvious. Having said that, though, I don't think we've solved all problems, right? And I was smiling when Alice was talking about, there is still a lot of confusion out there, and I call it the ghost mystery, right? And I was on this very interesting call last week. We're trying to do some things, and at Kimberly-Clark, we were fortunate enough to adopt programmatic, 4.5 years back, and some fascinating leaders who had the foresight to think that's the direction the world was going to go in. But despite that, I was on a call with some of the media technology firms who are meant to be the thought leaders in the space, and we were talking about a topic of deploying some of the third-party pixels, on some of our creative that gets run through our programmatic solutions. And one of the things that one of the leaders said was, no, we cannot do that because that pixel is going to get access to all the pricing data, all the consumer information and whatnot. And my first reaction was a little bit of a surprise because, it's a pixel, for heaven's sake, which is, it's not a magic wand that suddenly gives access. It's not a virus that suddenly starts to control everything that the consumer is doing or everything that you may be doing, as part of your bidding management tools and processes. The bottom line, there is still a lot of grayness. There is still massive levels of lack of awareness, within the industry on what programmatic is. It's almost like that dark tunnel where you want to go because you're curious, but you're still scared of going there. But I'm sure this is something that'll get, that will end up resolving as it matures, as more and more brands and marketers like us, start to adopt it and learn about, even the underlying principles and mechanics as well. So that's solvable. However, there is something much beyond that. I feel that's a fundamental gap that has to be resolved, and sooner than later, right? Which is, if you look at how programmatic came in and how a lot of the brands actually absorbed it, was thinking about a very media-focused mindset, right? It was all about optimizing your media buying process. It was all about optimizing your media buying spend and driving higher ROI and higher return. But if you think about it, it's all about the brand. It's all about the media. And what I feel the missing linchpin is, where is the consumer? The impact, the potential impact is much broader. The potential impact is about a much broader consumer experience that is connected, that is seamless, that is frictionless, and that is truly omni-channel across paid, owned, and earned, not just within the specs of the paid media world. And that's where I think there's a massive focus on looking at programmatic only as a media buying capability, as opposed to a much broader and holistic consumer experience platform or consumer experience mindset. And that's where I think you got to really simplify it and think about it as, from a consumer lens, all she expects is she wants an experience which is very similar to when you walk into an Apple store. You could literally, tell the sales guy what you're looking for. Within 2.5 minutes, you could be out of the Apple store with that product in your mind. And that not only includes you having checked out what that product is, that includes you having made the transaction, used your credit card, got the receipt, and you're out of there. It's an overarching experience. And that's the impact that programmatic can have on that ultimate experience that she's expecting from brands. And I think programmatic is also about changing consumer behaviors. It's not just about, again, optimizing your CPM rates and maximizing your conversion and click-through rates. I think it's about, at the most fundamental level, changing consumer behaviors. Those behaviors could be changing perception for your brand. That behavior could be, how do you handle stigma issues with some of your brands, right? Or how do you drive trial? How do you drive retention? How do you drive loyalty? That's where you got to start tying a capability like programmatic to, right? That's the impact that programmatic has to the overall consumer experience, to the overall lifetime value, that programmatic can have for your brands, for your consumers. And that's only possible when we actually look underneath the tip of the iceberg. And that's where, the bigger opportunity is beyond, yes, of course, needless to say, you can have 30, 40, 50% savings in your media buying process. But again, it's the real challenge and the opportunity is how well you leverage the data, how well do you leverage and apply those signals that we now can capture with every time someone is engaging with those content, with the ads, with the media that we're buying. And the key is, while that's being done, if you look at that machinery that we looked at a few slides back, it's being done, right? It's nothing new. The challenge is it's only being done in the restrictive scope of paid media. That data hasn't been leveraged across the board, across own and on, right? So if I have a mom who's looking at, if I have a Huggies mom who's actually looking at an OLA or watching a video about potty training, right, on diapers.com or mommyanswers.com, it's very important for me to know that, because for all you know, that mom is about to leave the category and getting into potty training. She may no longer need diapers. But I don't have that insight today because I can't connect those dots from paid back into my own and earned channels, back into my own assets. So when she actually comes to my store, when she actually comes to my .com site, I still feel, maybe she's the same mom, she still wants diapers. But you know what, she's going to leave me soon because she's actually looking for potty training. She'll probably go and get into a totally different brand altogether because I've lost her, right? I've lost the focus on who she is and what she really wants. And I think the challenge in terms of our ability to make that happen is because while we have data and while we have big data, however many of you actually believe in that term, that data is massively broken, right? So in all our worlds, we've got tremendous volume and tremendous explosion of the amount of data and what we know about her. But if you summarize that, it's not one mom. These are probably 10 different moms because we have data in 10 different places. Every touch point, every channel has its own siloed data. And there's a massive need to converge this data. So for the first time, it's one mom and not 10 moms. And that's when we can actually stitch a journey, right, and deliver that connected, seamless experience. And that's where I believe the programmatic world plays a massive role. The worlds of data management platforms that sit within the programmatic world that has sleuth of data across social, behavioral data, demographic data, what she's doing, what is her intent, what is her purchasing power, what has she done in the past. That's massive, that's gold mine. None of us probably use it, But the challenge and the opportunity is how well we can use it, how well we can connect that, across it, with data that we already have between your first party, perhaps even second party data and third party data. And that's when the magic happens. And when we are able to do that, that's when the notion of omni-channel becomes a reality. Otherwise, it's a far-fetched dream. And as an industry, we'll only be talking about it in decks and presentations like this. It'll never be real. Because in the entire ecosystem, the only entity that is really omni-channel is the consumer. Everybody else, whether these are technology players or brands or agencies or marketers, we're all multi-channel at best, right? We can all say, oh yeah, I live on mobile, I got something on social, tick, 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 but it's all siloed. The only person who's really thinking omni-channel, because all she cares about is the best product at the best price, is the consumer, but we're nowhere close. So, I guess you guys can read it. I don't want to use that word, but if you all believe that we'll continue to go down this path in the isolated worlds and still deliver that ultimate seamless experience, we could be on our own journey and we could be lying to ourselves, but the ground reality is very different. So, like I said, I think for me the biggest opportunity that programmatic has, and in some places it's already demonstrating that, is how do you get her the best product at the best price at a time, location, touch point of her choice, and at the fastest possible speed for her. It's no longer, or shouldn't be, just about how do you get the right media, the right content at the best price, for the right consumer. We got to flip that. We got to shift it, put the ball in her court, put her at the center. The moment we start to do that, the kind of opportunities that we have that we can actually solve with a capability like programmatic just totally goes off the roof. And the scope of programmatic, massively increases across channel and not just within paid. And lastly, this great quote from William Gibson where he said, the future has already arrived. I think it's just not evenly distributed. So these are very early stages for programmatic. I know some of you and some of the technology partners and platforms here are probably the pioneers. They started sooner than some of the other ones. But as you can see, this is Australia, this is Asia Pac. I was in Singapore some time back, and there are people all around the world, who are actually adopting and testing that capability. And everyone's really, wearing the hat of big testing and big learning, because we all realize that nothing's perfect, but the key is to test it, and continuously optimize it, because at the end of the day, everybody's goal is to drive that ultimate experience, that'll finally and ultimately, change consumer behaviors that prevent us from making money. So with that, I think that's it. Thank you.
Right, we're gonna have some time for some questions, and also I'll kick off with some questions. So, if any of you have any questions, please get them ready. Thank you. That was a really inspiring presentation. I guess taking it back to the very beginning, Kimberly-Clark was probably a pretty traditional business globally in the beginning. What kind of inspired them to actually attract someone like you into the marketing organisation, and what kind of kicked that off? And how does the marketing department actually even come to that point in their journey?
Yeah, I'll answer that with an acknowledgement that they probably regret that decision when they actually did get me to the organization. But I think it was thanks to the vision that our leadership had, and it was a realization that technology and marketing could no longer be isolated. Oh, thank you. I was trying to scream as much as possible.
Wonderful.
So I think everybody got the question right. Yeah. Okay. So I think it was thanks to the vision and the great leadership we have in the organization. So like I said, our CMO Clive Shurkin and even Tony Palmer, who's the president, they had a great foresight, and probably much before many of the other Fortune 100 and 500, especially in the CPG world, realized they knew that marketing and technology could not be isolated. They knew that technology was the new interface of marketing. Technology was the new user experience. If you look at a smartphone, if you look at an iPhone, it's a perfect reflection of what that really means. And we knew if we had to engage the consumer, if we had to become category leaders, if we had to build legendary brands, we had to bring technology and data, at the core and the center of the marketing organization. And I'm assuming that's what they thought, and they said, we had to build an organization. Having said that, it wasn't easy. Like I said, we are a 150-year-old organization, massive across 81 odd countries and markets. It had to bring tremendous mindset shift in not just how we organize, but also how do you think about technology? How do you think about technology in the world of marketing? How do you think about technology as playing a massive role in driving connected and seamless consumer experiences?
And was that part of your remit to try to instill the mind shift in more the marketing department?
Yes, absolutely it was.
How did you do that?
By having a lot of gray hair in the last 3 years and losing the ones that I had. But again, like I said, it was a tremendous effort. We have, we're very fortunate to have great leaders. So our CMO and CIO had a very strong partnership, and we had the green signal to go ahead and form an organization. I think we've made in 3 broad buckets some transitions. So one was in terms of finding and building talent that we call the unicorns. So if you look at a traditional marketer or the traditional technology, it's a T-shaped marketer or T-shaped technology, people who go down in one area, because that's how we've all grown up. So when we're doing majors in school and academics, we either did major in marketing or sales or technology. But we realized as an organization, for us to be successful in driving the desired consumer behaviors and experiences, we needed marketers who were literally pie-shaped or multi-pie shaped, and we call them unicorns. So they had to be technologists, they had to be marketers, they had to be storytellers, and we found a lot of those. We've initiated a massive program sponsored by the CMO to elevate the digital IQ of the organization. 2, we made a very conscious effort to change the operating model and the way we organize. So I spoke about fundamental levels of fragmentation in the way you organize and you operate. We made a lot of effort to drive convergence, to break the traditional silos. Even though we have specialist areas and roles, we've changed our processes and evolved them to focus them on consumer behaviors that need to be changed. So at Kimberly-Clark, you will not hear the fact that we want to do something which is mobile first. You will not hear the fact that we've moved X percentage of budget from broadcast to digital. It's all about key behaviors that we believe are preventing us from making money, and then everything is in the service of that. Whether that requires massive investment in broadcast and television, we'll do that. If that requires 100% investment for that specific idea in digital, we'll do that. So we've come up with a very unique model that's very centered and focused around the consumer and consumer behaviors.
And getting to programmatic itself as an innovation, I guess, for the marketing department, how did you approach that innovation, and how long did it take? Not only in the US, but
Yeah.
as a global organisation.
Yeah. So we are still in the infancy for programmatic. We haven't scaled it globally yet. Obviously, North America was our first market and region that adopted it. We are in the process of globalizing it in some of our tier 1 markets, and Australia being one of them, and some of the other obvious ones. In terms of how it came on board, that happened even before I joined. Like I said, we had tremendous thought leadership in media, and that was an area that our marketing leadership had invested in. So I think in the first 2 years, our focus was on the bottom line. It was more focused on driving cost savings, optimizing our media spend, driving higher ROI. What we're doing now is trying to challenge ourselves and drive innovation across how best we can leverage data, apply it, and converge data across the traditional silos of first party, second party, and third party. Pretty much everything I shared, and we are on the journey now, very early on. I think we have some very strong plans for this year on measuring the impact of that data convergence. Again, with an ultimate goal of driving what we call seamless experiences in an omnichannel world. So that's a massive, ask that we have, that we've put in the calendars for this year, and we're really excited about it.
And are you one of the marketers that is shifting 75% of your budget to a programmatic world, or where do you sit on that journey?
Well, like I said, I don't think we have predefined percentage allocations. I would say though there's massive adoption within Kimberly-Clark in terms of programmatic, because we've already seen results and pretty dramatic results. I think the percentage will be an organic result of how we progress, across the globe.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on the floor? Yes. Can you shout up?
Yes, I can.
So we use our agency partners to provide the service, even though we own the infrastructure and the capability itself. But it's not in-house. We use our agency partners to manage the desk for us and do that. And I think we'll stick with that. We'll stick with that model. It's working really well for us. At the end of the day, it's not really our core competency to have 20 people manning the desk, and we don't see the value there. But yeah, so it's a hybrid model, and it's worked really well.
But your programmatic team sits within the agency team that manages
Yes,
all of
yes,
the
it's all converged. So again, the fundamental mindset being we want to avoid as many silos as possible and continue to converge, because you can't, it's very similar to, like I was saying earlier, it's very easy to think channels. It's very easy to think media here and content here and data here, but it's almost impossible if you're really trying to drive the desired consumer experiences to isolate media from content, to isolate content from data, because the real magic happens when all of these pieces come together. I think it sits right up there. The fact that my leadership allowed me to come here shows the fact that it's a huge opportunity in Australia. And I don't know how many other markets are doing dedicated programmatic summits. So as a market, I think there's a tremendous opportunity. There's tremendous awareness. I was telling Sam before we started that we just had a meeting yesterday in our Sydney office where we were exploring and talking about how quickly can we actually pilot something and prove the results and then start to scale it. So for Kimberly-Clark, it's massive. It's one of our key markets, and I'm sure for other brands too, markets like Australia, Korea, UK are massive markets too as early adopters.
Roughly how many MarTech partners are you working with in the US and Australia?
How many MarTech partners?
Yeah.
There are many of them. And I'm pretty clever, so to keep my job, I keep adding new ones every week. So even if they want to let go of me, it's not easy enough for them. But to be honest, I don't know if it's so much about the number of partners we have or the number of different technology stacks that we're using. When I joined, then one of the big founding principles that we established was it's not so much about how many technologies you have, but how well we are able to apply those technologies to change consumer behaviors that are preventing our brands from making money. And that's been our biggest challenge, but at the same time, that's our biggest opportunity as well, because not everyone's thinking that way. On one hand, we have massive technology investments. These are like big elephants sitting inside the room, but we're just feeding them, not utilizing them, and that's the challenge that exists across the industry. You'll see a lot of brands have big capabilities, marketing automation platforms, programmatic capabilities, but we aren't really using them to the full capacity. So we're very conscious about that. At the same time, anytime we are looking at new capabilities, we are also conscious that we don't want to stack them up. We want to build a connected ecosystem. We know that we have a puzzle that we're trying to make. These are cards of the puzzle that are lying on the table. Anytime we get a new technology idea, we have a great new technology player coming to us. Our challenge and our ask is tell us how your piece fits into the puzzle that we have and how it helps us complete that puzzle and not stack on top of each other. Because that's in the way technology is growing, which is consolidating and diversifying at the same time, that's a massive issue, right? And we all running through that roadblock. So I don't know, that didn't answer the number, but I hope that gives you some insight.
Thank you. Just the last question from a personal experience, from your perspective. Everything is moving at such a rapid rate, and there's a mixture of publishers, marketers, and agencies in the room. What piece of advice can you give us when you're on this train that's just travelling at such speed?
Well, I don't know if I can give the advice. I came here to actually get a few. But if there's only one thing that I've learned in the last 3 years, it is this one quote from Steve Jobs that actually said, innovation and creativity is nothing more than connecting the dots. And while it sounds very simple, that's the most common element that is missing from our industry, is our inability to connect the dots. And I look at examples of great solutions like Uber, what you think about is all it's doing is using a GPS solution, a mobile app, which is fairly simple, and just connecting those dots. And I think all the consumer is expecting us to do is connect those dots, ultimately to deliver that, frictionless and great experience, so that she can buy, like I said, she can buy the best product at the best price. And it's not more complex than that. Everything else that we do with complex terminologies and chronologies is what we like to do as marketers, but the founding principles could be fairly simple.
Wonderful. Thanks very much. Thank you.
We needed to take away from the focus on technology and programmatic, bring it back to the human touch, realise that we are talking about people. And also, thank you, Maya, because it's something we all talk about, those pieces of the puzzle coming together. And it is when we look at that I try not to use the word consumer journey. So you can pull me up today on how many times I use the word consumer, how many, looking at that human journey and where we go with it. So thank you very much. And I do hope that you take away some stuff today, because Australia is a unique market. One thing we all need to be mindful of is we are ahead of the world in so many ways, but we do have lessons to learn from people across the globe. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you, Sam, for moderating that. Our next session is from Dave, who is from AppNexus. He is the VP for Asia Pacific, Dave Osborne. He's also a member of our AdTech Council at the IAB Group. And what Dave's going to be sharing with us is his programmatic playbook, so as well some more key points to take out of that. We are fantastically running to time at this point, and I will be monitoring the time. So I do urge you, when you do have questions, please, this is your opportunity to take them. And I would like to welcome Dave. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Can I get the first slide, or maybe I'll just take control in real time? Maybe? Not so much. I heard a rumor that song played on a loop for like a day or day and days on end in Australia when it first launched. And when I got to Australia, it was still playing. So when the Ashton media folks, and Mark specifically, asked me about a month ago to talk about what I was going to say today, the first thing that came to mind was a programmatic playbook. This idea that we could list 5 things for agencies and publishers and marketers that each company needs to do to win. And so I sent that in, but as I started preparing last night, as you kind of do for these presentations, it occurred to me that a playbook is team specific. It's a collection of the strategies and tactics that a team deploys to win that reflect its unique strengths in the market. And with that in mind, it occurred to me that I know a lot of you, but I don't know all of you, and it would be a bit presumptuous and probably a lot unhelpful for me to try to tell you the 5 things across sectors that each of you need to do to win. And so I'm actually not going to give a programmatic playbook this morning. Instead, what I'm going to try to do is try to simplify programmatic by offering a new framework by which to think about this. We've heard about simple and complexity a couple times already today. I'm going to tell you how big we think this opportunity is, and I think it's even bigger than some of the numbers we've seen earlier today, because I don't think we're all looking at it in exactly the right way. And most importantly, I want to talk about the 3 things that I do think every company can do in order to win in general in business, but specifically in programmatic. Hence the new title, which is Doing What Matters. Before I jump in, I want to give you a little bit of information on who I am. So I came to AppNexus in 2011 to build a strategic accounts function for the company. I opened our office in Seattle, where I'm from. I sound Australian, but I'm not. And I built a strategic accounts function around Microsoft, and then spent the next several years traveling around the world and building organizations around other companies that have invested in AppNexus's advertising technology. So the benefit of seeing a lot of different companies. In 2013, AppNexus started exploring the Australian opportunity, and I was asked to lead that charge because I spoke Australian. I remember coming down the second time in 2013 and flying back and talking to my wife. And I suggested to her that maybe what we should do is uproot our family of three kids and move 9,000 miles away from Seattle, which we called home, to Australia. 9,000 miles, when you do the conversion, is 1,000,000 kilometers. And she kind of laughed at me the first time, but then she actually warmed to the idea. And so in January of last year, we landed here. We couldn't be happier. This is my son, Connor, who's gone from pitching in baseball to bowling and cricket. I think it's pretty good form. My daughter, Kaya, who's 6, now thinks it's normal to have a python around her neck at the local hardware store at Bunnings. And Gracie is basically gone full Aussie, and she refuses to wear shoes and is developing a cute accent. So those are mine, and we couldn't be happier. We don't have a return ticket. This is an amazing place. Enough about me. This is a terrifying graphic, I admit, but for the next couple minutes, I'm going to bend a sports analogy because it helps make a point. In the U.S., when I came to Australia, I learned that they call football gridiron. And like football in the U.S., programmatic in the U.S. is big, it's brash, there's a lot of bling. It's the largest ad market in the world, and it's got a ton of networks and intermediaries that are present, which means there's a lot of padding in programmatic. The U.S. ad market is a place where the ad break is as important as the game itself. And it's a market that has a unique set of rules and a tendency to assume that every other market plays by that same set of rules. I also knew when I got to Australia that most Europeans and some of my hipster friends in Seattle called soccer football. And there's 3 big ad markets in Europe, UK, Germany, and France. And stripped of the padding of the intermediaries in those markets, programmatic is developing in a very different way, where the agencies and publishers are kind of leading the charge. In the UK, that means companies like WPP building data management capabilities on top of core technology, or Omnicom taking the charge in leading with new ways of developing on top of technology to harness publisher deals at scale. In France, that means groups of publishers getting together and putting aside their traditional rivalries to combine their content to combat threats to their independence from global media companies that value audience and not context. And in Germany, the market's been slower to adapt. So you've got a couple publishers who've made big, bold bets, but the dynamics in Germany don't actually favor change. And so that market has actually been much slower to adapt. So I want to talk, so I get to Australia, and I learned that there's 2 more kinds of football, right? And there's no pads at all in any of these, much like some of the trading agreements that I've seen that have just been struck. As far as I can tell across football, now that I'm in Australia, the most common element is the fact that there's a ball. And when you say football to me, unless I know you and where you're from and what you like, I have no idea which football you're talking about. I think that programmatic is exactly the same thing. I think that when I say programmatic and when you say programmatic, we're not speaking the same language. And that's a problem. Unless I know you, where you're from, your company, your strategy, your objectives, we're talking around one another. And up next is one of our core values is to try to see and improve the whole system. And sometimes improving things actually means reducing complexity and simplifying the process. And so with that spirit, I want to introduce a concept of marketplaces. So what's a marketplace? A marketplace is an open place, and it's its core definition where companies come together to compete to sell their products and services. An advertising marketplace then, an advertising marketplace is an open place, and that's a key point where buyers and sellers would come together to trade advertising. What does programmatic technology do? Programmatic technology allows buyers to evaluate inventory and opportunities to market, and sellers to maximize their revenue inside these marketplaces. We think that there are 4 key marketplaces that are being unchangeably impacted by programmatic technology. The first is a performance marketplace. The performance marketplace is a market where the seller takes all the risk and captures all the reward. As long as they achieve the buyer's objectives for performance, they can make a $10, a $20, a $1,000 CPM. They take the risk. This is actually not a real-time bidded marketplace, at least not in the sense that we observe it. It's one that's ad-served and is a function of optimization. The second marketplace is the auctions marketplace, and this is real-time bidded. This is what we think of, most people think of when they think of programmatic. This marketplace heavily favors the buyer. The buyer takes the risk. They decide what to serve and to whom at the moment of impression, right? Seller context isn't really valued in this marketplace behind basic brand safety measures. So again, this marketplace particularly favors the buyer. The deals marketplace offers the strongest option or the strongest creation of what we call in advertising's virtuous cycle. That is where a better consumer experience with advertising generates more positive ROI for advertisers, which puts more money in sellers' pockets, premium sellers' pockets, which goes to fund the creation of quality content, and that in turn generates a more positive experience for consumers. The deals marketplace involves sellers trading transparency and data. Buyers trade rate for the opportunity to bring their own first-party data to that opportunity to serve that impression. We think this is a very, very big market. The last is the guaranteed marketplace. In a guaranteed marketplace, the buyer trades rate for a commitment to deliver impressions over a particular period of time. But in a true reservation, the buyer trades control to the seller. They actually don't decide when to serve and to whom to serve. And this marketplace is evolving, and there's a lot of noise on both sides, but it's definitely one that's going to be powered by programmatic. The reason that I raise these four marketplaces is because I think when you look at the growth of digital advertising with the marketplace's construct as a lens, the opportunities, the financial opportunities become much more impactful. So we did some analysis back in last year when we saw some IDC numbers come out, because IDC called a $21 billion RTB marketplace by 2017, which we thought wildly understated the actual opportunity. And so we used some of our own sorcery to create our own projections here on what we think will happen. The number you don't see on this is $177 billion. That's display advertising in 2017, or excuse me, that's digital advertising globally in 2017. And once you strip out search and social, which really aren't open marketplaces, they're controlled by a handful of companies, and search isn't growing all that quickly anyway, you actually get to $105 billion in open platform addressable for all of us in this room. $31 billion of that is going to be direct, guaranteed media between publishers and media agencies. And that number's not growing from 2013, and that's part of a trend we've been seeing for the last several years. But the big dynamic is we think that 40% of those transactions are going to be enabled by programmatic technology. That's a big deal. $74 billion of that 105 is actually going to be traded on indirect means, and that's the market. That's the market that's most impacted by programmatic technology. The auctions marketplace is growing by 4x from 5 billion over that time frame to 21. Performance, which we just called out as being enabled by programmatic technology, is 19 billion. And the deals marketplace, which we talked about, is bigger than both of them. The reason I'm showing this slide to you is because when you take 13, 19, 21, and 25, that's a $78 billion global marketplace powered by programmatic technology. And put differently, what that means is that 3/4 of all of the digital ad spend is going to be enabled by programmatic technology. 3/4 of what everyone in this room does will be programmatic. That's a huge deal. And it's very important for us to speak a common language if we want to proportionately realize the benefits of this move from manual to programmatic. Now, getting your share is the hard part. And this is called Girls Can Do Anything is the name of this iStock photo, so I'm going to get a chuckle out of that. I'm going to put on a publisher hat for a moment, because we've all got challenges. As a publisher, I look at SMI data or other market share data. And I see lots of companies growing. I see global media companies growing. I see SSPs and networks and exchanges growing, double digits, quarter on quarter, month on month, but I'm not growing at that clip. If I lose $1 of my direct sold performance business, I get maybe 5% of that back through the programmatic channels. My ad ops teams, they're adapting, but really slowly. My instinct is to put my current products that I sell direct into the programmatic channel, and everyone can help me as long as I'll put them first in my waterfall or put their tag on my page, and by the way, give them 10 to 20% of my revenue. The trading agreements that I see with my major holding companies don't really often reflect the spirit of partnership, and now I've got things like viewability and data leakage to contend with. And I'm under massive revenue pressure. And so every time the shiny new deal from that desk comes along, I got to fragment my demand and find a new tech stack to deliver on that one particular deal, because I'm under such massive revenue pressure. Now I'm going to put my agency hat on. All right, yeah, publishers, you got problems. I've got to grow. I've got to grow profitably. And I've got technology companies and media companies going direct to my clients every day for the first time, which is creating massive headaches for me. All right, if I'm a desk, I've now got to grow. The agency mandates help me mop up a lot of the available performance dollars over the last several years, but that's plateaued. And if I want to grow, I got to go tap audience budgets, I got to go tap premium budgets inside the agencies. But by the way, in order to do that, I've got to deliver 50 to 100% more value on top of what the agency can do direct. Because the moment I move it out of a direct manual channel, I start paying 25% in tech fees. And if I want to pay my people and I want to deliver a margin to the business, I got to add maybe, 50, 75% more value on top of that. My experiments in doing premium as an agency trade desk, they really don't scale, right? They're harder than they're worth. And to make matters worse, sometimes I feel like I'm in the backseat on innovation because my clients and my agencies are just as likely to hear about my roadmap for innovation from my DSP as they are from me. As an advertiser, my challenges are no less significant. New hat on, right? So if I've got a data asset, I can figure out a way to unlock that power and sell my consumer audience data to other marketers. But more specifically, when I get these reports from the World Federation of Advertisers showing that 40% of my dollar is going to working media, 60% is taken out along the way, why the hell wouldn't I try to bring that in-house? Why wouldn't I actually try to do something about that? The technology companies and media companies on my doorstep are promising me that they can work with that they can make life better for me. But the problem is, I'm as a marketer now going from a relationship that I know that I understand with my agency, but no longer trust, to a relationship with a technology or global media company that I trust, but I don't really understand. My argument is that these are challenges, right? These are challenges, and they're all significant. But in order to address these challenges, there's really only three things that we as an industry and we as companies need to do. The problem is that these three things are the hardest and most thorniest aspects of our work that aren't nearly a part enough of our day-to-day jobs. The first thing is investing in people, all right? There's this concept in Australia that the talent pool is super, super shallow, right? And my friend Carrie McCabe at Radium One was quoted by Mumbrella the other day saying companies are overpaying for average talent. All right, it may be true, but I think that that's a function of fishing in the wrong pools and not being willing to invest in your people. So at AppNexus, as an example, fewer than 10% of our employee base come from AdTech. 0 of my first employees in Australia come from AdTech, and 1 of the next 4 will come from AdTech. What we hire for is DNA, and what companies that are going to win in here hire for is DNA, technology DNA, a passion for customer success, a passion for digging on problems and consulting on the bigger picture. A company that does this extremely well in this marketplace is Xaxis, and I want to introduce you to one of Xaxis's employees whose face I had to blur because you'd poach him if I didn't. This gentleman came to Xaxis and had some campaign management experience, all right? Yeah, media, middle of the road campaign management experience. Today, this guy, this relatively young kid, is writing API code and delivering massive innovation, massive efficiency to the Xaxis trading operation, which is delivering not just cool stuff, but material business impact, all right? This is part of, this guy did not go to school to learn an API, right? And what's more is the program that our team put in place, the technical account manager at AppNexus who put this API University program in place for Xaxis, he used to manage a restaurant. He didn't go to school to learn APIs, right? They shared a common DNA. And this program at Xaxis is something that was put in place to give their employees something exciting to put on their resumes, which has this double effect, which is risky, by the way, of making them more attractive to their next employer while engendering loyalty to Xaxis, right? The important thing here is not Xaxis, all right? It's the recognition by a leader and by multiple leaders within that organization that technology and operations is a science, and mastery over that technology can give your business a differentiated competitive advantage, while at the same time upskilling your current employee base and transforming what they look like. This concept is not Xaxis specific. It applies to every company in this room. The next bit is to think and act strategically. I see this very much increasingly at leadership levels in multiple companies in Australia, and it couldn't be more exciting. Thinking strategically and acting strategically gives you control over your business outcomes and how you grow. And it doesn't mean going slow. A lot of times it means breaking the mold and doing what is unexpected. A couple good examples of that for you. One is car sales and their partner Audience 360. Car sales has some of the most powerful intent data in all of Australia. They sell out most of their inventory every month, and for years buyers have been banging on their door saying, give me your data so I can decouple it from your audience and buy it elsewhere. I'll give you a big check. Car sales says, no way, puts our business at risk unless we can find a way to do this securely. So they've partnered with Audience 360, which is a technology and a publishing company in its own right, but made up of a team of powerful, skilled traders. They've built a solution on top of AppNexus that allows them to deploy both a self-serve and managed campaign offering to agencies, agency trade desks, and marketers to reach car sales audiences across exchange, private marketplace, and guaranteed media in Australia's publishers. This is a big deal. This gives cars, and at the same time it gives car sales total control and visibility into how their data is being used. The result, you see 2x the conversion rate when you use car sales data compared to other available auto intender data. And publishers and data owners have noticed this. Audience 360, our partner, has just announced exclusive deals with Webjets and Census to deliver a similar solution for those data owners. This is a big moment. This solution was not what people asked Anthony Sains for at car sales. They didn't ask him. They wanted something different. He said, I've got a strategic conviction. I've got a business to run, and I'm going to do it my way. And placed a very long bet based on the conviction there. The second example I want to talk about is the Dentsu Aegis network, right? Dentsu Aegis network has an objective shared by most agencies of increasing and generating better client results through programmatic, while at the same time increasing stickiness, client stickiness for the group. They recognize that the majority of the inventory that they trade digitally is still traded manually. But they've got a challenge in moving that into programmatic to get the benefits of the auctions marketplace. Remember we talked about that where the buyer has control? Well, you get the combination of the guaranteed marketplace where you can actually deliver exactly what you commit to the advertiser. Dentsu Aegis is building an agency marketplace. It is going to be powered by AppNexus, and the important thing is it's going to centralize decisioning across the group within the hands of the leaders at Amnet for spots and dots across the Dentsu Aegis clients. And they're going to be able to use their data and insights to serve inventory across these publishers. The results from this are going to be, firstly, that they cordon inventory off from global media companies and competitive agencies and DSPs. That is a very important point around stickiness. Number two is that they're going to stop paying a ton of intermediaries and tech fees, right? This is not, it's hard to move out of a programmatic channel into guaranteed and justify giving 10 to 20% to companies like DSPs and AppNexus and SSPs, right? It's very hard to do. And this is going to, most importantly, for everyone in this room, particularly sellers and buyers, free them up to focus more on higher value sponsorships for both the sellers and the buyers. I think this is a big moment. This is not an overnight bet for Dentsu Aegis. This is a long bet based on a strategic conviction. The last thought is to play the long game. All right, this is the hardest one to embrace, and it's also one that isn't frequently made public, right? Because playing the long bet means that you're not focused on next quarter's revenue. We're not a media company, so frequently we get keyed into some of these long bets that these companies are making, but we can't talk about all of them. The one that I can talk about is Apex Advertising. Apex is a joint venture between Fairfax and Nine Entertainment designed to build a mobile marketplace in Australia. Apex was born out of a recognition by senior leaders at NEC and Fairfax that mobile is a strategic priority. It's not the second screen, it's the only screen. It was also born out of a recognition that there are two groups in Australia that control mobile dollars, Facebook and Google, and mobile intermediaries. And that wasn't good for Fairfax and NEC. They've taken a path similar to Audience Square, Laplace Media, and other publishers throughout Europe, where they're putting aside their traditional rivalries and combining to combat a threat that is great to their independence. Their focus is not on more inventory, but on a better consumer experience, and importantly, developing strategic relationships with agencies and advertisers who've been kept at bay in mobile by virtue of the companies that I mentioned earlier. This is not an overnight play. This is creating a marketplace for premium content in Australia. This is a long bet. A couple other examples. There's companies, publishers in this space that dare to believe that they can create a performance business. Can you imagine hiring salespeople to sell performance media and programmatic? But imagine if these companies weren't reliant on global media companies or networks for fill, and instead could upskill their ad ops teams to basically transform their ad ops teams and maintain control over their relationships with agencies and advertisers. Imagine that. The others, companies just getting started or not, Kohl's, Quantium, Tipstone, Red Planet, companies with significant tranches of offline data. They're going to have to fight very hard for consumer attention because they don't have the heft of the holdcos, and they don't have the heft of the media, of the partnerships with publishers. But these can be disruptive forces in the marketplace, and I have no idea how it's going to play out, but it is. None of these things, none of these bets are possible without people, strategic conviction, and patience. So there you have it. If I want to leave you with 3 things today, they're these. Number 1 is to make an effort. We've talked about it twice already today with Alice and Mayur. Make an effort to simplify programmatic. The spoils of complexity and the spoils of that $78 billion opportunity are not going to go to agencies and publishers. They're going to go disproportionately to global media companies with technology on-ramps. Make time to make time. Doing what matters. Time is your biggest enemy in doing what matters, in focusing on your people, your strategy, and playing the long game. And ask the hard questions of your team, yourself, and your vendors. Are you as an employee genuinely becoming a better operator? Are you more valuable to your next employer, but are you really loyal to your current one? If not, something's wrong. How are you going to grow in this market? Not how News is going to compete with Fairfax or how MI9 is going to compete with Yahoo, but how all of you are going to compete with companies unrelated to you traditionally who are growing double digits quarter on quarter and year on year. What are you going to do? And play the long game. Are your leaders giving you the freedom to innovate? Are your leaders giving you the freedom to take big swings in this market that can genuinely differentiate the business in the long term? Thanks to Ashton Media, to the IAB, to Alice for getting us started off right, and Mayur for a great session. Hope everyone enjoys the rest of the day. Thank you for your time.
And thanks to Jay for a true example of real-time optimization, changing the topic on the fly. We do have a few minutes, so are there any questions from anyone in the audience? My question, because I always have one, we saw the human touch, we saw the need for technology, we saw the real opportunity. If there was one thing everyone were to leave today and do, what would that be?
There's only 3.
3. 1. I'm asking for 1.
It's people. It's focusing on the people. I think that the most important thing we can do is hire from outside this industry and build and invest in significant onboarding curricula, right? And be patient. You got to give people 3 to 6 months to be productive in this space if they're not coming from AdTech. You just got to.
We do have a session on talent specifically for this reason. It is an area that we're learning on as we go ahead. What we're going to do next, we have a 20-minute break for everyone. We will break into 2 different fields. There is the main room here, and then there's the doors room. The doors room sessions will be moderated by one of the IAB board who's with us today. Thank you so much to Jonas Sinemaki. And that is just down there. So please take a break. Take an opportunity to ask questions if you do have any of our speakers. I think it's been a really good start to the morning. Hopefully not too overwhelming. Hopefully breaking down those pieces to you. And again, I'd like to also just thank our sponsors that are here.